glasses that may not reflect so much. Give me a minute.
Okay, Mataji, no problem.
So today is for me, it's the 29th of October. Is that for you?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay,
In the morning.
29th of October in Plainfield, New Jersey.
Yes.
And we're going to be meditating on Govardhan a little bit in advance of Govardhan Puja. All right. Oh, wait, I got to do something else. Sorry. I haven't used Zoom for a while. I've forgotten how you do everything here. Okay. Okay. Now, how do I? Boy, it's been so long since I did this. How do I see myself here? Okay, 1 minute. Spotlight is. Somehow I'm disappearing when I do this. I'm not sure why. How is it that how do I see myself here? How do I actually, goodness, I used to doing this for years. Anyway, I guess we'll just go on, although I don't know why it's doing that. Can you see me along with the screen share or no?
Yes, Mataji, can see you on the screen also.
You can. Somehow I can't see anybody. All right. So we are going to be meditating on Govardhan Hill. And this hill is Krishna himself in the mood of a devotee.
Namaste Virajaya Shri Govardhana Namine Ashesha Klesha Nashaya Paramanandayane.
Were you all able to hear that music?
Yes.
Was everyone able to hear that music? Yes. Okay, great.
Yes.
Fantastic. So we're going to first meditate on this very famous verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, about Govardhan being Haridasya Varyo, the greatest devotee of Krishna. And our acharyas tell us that this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani. So we're going to go through this particular verse. Of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. So, of course, it's interesting that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Raghunath Das Goswami a Govardhan Shila and told him to worship the Govardhan Shila as Krishna. And yet we're told that he is the best of the devotees. So, of course, we're all very familiar with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna in the mood of a devotee. I'm just reading about this in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, and Srila Prabhupada is saying there that it's important to respect the mood of each avatar. And of course, many devotees revered and worshiped Lord Chaitanya as Krishna, but he said to approach Lord Chaitanya as if he's in the mood of the enjoyer is going to be disturbing him. So although we worship Sri Giriraj Govardhan as Krishna, following the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada, still we respect that he's in the mood of being the best of his own devotees. You know, in this material world, most of us don't like to be a servant. We want to be a master. Most people don't tell their children now, I want you to grow up and be a servant. But being a servant of the Lord is so relishable that the Lord likes to be a servant of the Lord. So let's look at how Govardhan is the best of the devotees. So Srimati Radharani continues, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram, along with their calves, cows, and cowherd boys, with all kinds of necessities. So we know that Krishna says that one who says, I am your devotee is not, but one who says, I am a devotee of your devotee is actually the devotee. So Govardhan Hill is the best devotee of Krishna because he's the best devotee of the devotees. He's supplying not only Krishna and Balaram, so he's supplying Krishna and Balaram directly, but he's also supplying their cowherd boys, their calves, and their cows. What is he supplying them? So he's giving them water. Now, of course, today, if you go to Govardhan Hill, you won't see water. But there it says from the waterfalls, Krishna and Balaram drink them. They use them to wash their feet and their mouths. I mean, nowadays in most of the world, if you find water in nature, you don't drink it. It's polluted. But this water was pure. And many beverages. So among them honey. So many beehives on the trees that the honey was dripping from the beehives and you could just collect it in a pot. And mangoes and pilu. So you could pick the fruits and you could make juice and drink the beverages. And soft grass for feeding the transcendental herd. So not only serving the cowherd boys, but also serving the cows, not discriminating, well, these are human devotees, these are animal devotees, but serving all the devotees. So if we want to be a good devotee of Krishna, we serve Krishna and we serve the devotees and all grades of devotees. Raghunath Das Goswami in Manashiksha talks about how we can think we're getting purified if we're following strictly, but we might actually be bathing in donkey urine that's burning us. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says one way we can be bathing in donkey urine, thinking we're bathing in nectar, is if we are very nice to the rich and powerful people and we ignore the humble devotees. So Shri Giriraj Govardhan, he takes care of all the devotees. And then he gives nice caves and trees where Krishna and Balaram and their friends can sit, play, and lie down. So tree trunks and caves. And these caves give pleasure when the weather is too hot or too cold or when it's raining. So natural, we have this water, we have caves, natural homes. And of course, these are not just like ordinary caves that are just full of rocks, but they're full of all delightful places to sit and relax. And caves are naturally an even temperature. So when it's too hot or too cold outside, they're very nice, even temperature. So he's providing places for them to stay. You know, when we provide places for the devotees to stay, places for them to relax. And there's also roots for eating. So Krishna and the cowherd boys, they're digging up the roots and eating them. And Govardhan's providing jewels. So as people get more sinful, to get jewels, they have to go deep into the earth in these horrific mines. We were saying recently an opal mine where miners were going deep into the earth and living in horrific situations without proper air and sunlight, chipping away at rocks just to find some opals. But when people are more pious, the earth is putting these jewels on the center, on the surface rather. So Sri Giriraj Govardhan, he's putting these jewels right on the surface for Krishna and Balaram and their friends to just pick up and ornament themselves. And then nice places to sit. So, in our modern parks, we have benches, man-made benches out of wood and stone and like that. But Giriraj, he's providing natural benches under the shade of trees. Now remember, Giriraj is Krishna. And so what's he doing there? He's doing all this with his own body. We understand that Govardhan is like Krishna lying down, Radhakund, Shamakund are his eyes, right? And he's lying down. If you go to some temples, especially in South India, like in Kerala, many years ago, we went to this temple of Vishnu where he's, lying down. So Giriraj is like that. He's Krishna lying down, and from his body, he's making caves, giving roots for eating, giving honey and fruit juice, giving places for sitting. So this is the ultimate service. This is why he's the best of the devotees, because he's giving the service from his own body. And the verse goes on to say, being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Govardhan Hill appears very jubilant. So generally, if someone's touching us with their feet, that's an offense, right? We don't touch things with our feet. But Krishna, in the form of Giriraj, he's enjoying being touched by his own feet. Of course, he's also enjoying being touched by the feet of the devotees, the cows, not only the cows. There are so many other creatures, monkeys, donkeys, peacocks, deer, pigs, that are running all over Govardhan, and he's enjoying this touch of the feet of the devotees. By the way, this photograph is from New Mayapur, France. And at least when it was taken, the devotees, they were very poor. They couldn't afford flowers, so they just had garlands out of leaves. And they had outfits for Krishna Balaram that were in tune with the 4 seasons. So this is their spring outfit. And it really looked like Krishna and Balaram were walking through the spring forest in Vrindavan, and bits of the forest were attaching themselves to their clothes and so forth. So Govardhan Hill shows us how we can render pure devotional service, which is why the devotees pray. And this is, of course, a prayer by Raghunath Das Goswami. So we're now going to look at the famous Govardhan Lila, which is, of course, coming up next month in Govardhan Puja. And this is where the cowherds were preparing a grand sacrifice. And Krishna appears as a little boy, and he's asking his father, so why are you doing this sacrifice? Is it something in the scriptures, or is it just tradition? So this is a very important question, and this is the kind of question that we should feel very confident to ask anyone. What is your pramana? What is your source of knowledge? What's your evidence? How are you getting the evidence for this? Where does it come from? As our Krishna consciousness movement grows, so we have access to so many more books of our previous acharyas, but we also have access to so many other Vedic scriptures, some of this which may have been changed or distorted or mistranslated, or it may be just some village story. And so we should ask. Because sometimes, Srila Rupa Goswami does say, and Srila Prabhupada repeats this, that sometimes one can get information from some village story, but still, We should only accept the village stories that our acharyas accept. Just like the other day, we were reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita how the Shakshi Gopal deity came to Jagannath Puri, but then because of a love quarrel between Shakshi Gopal and Lord Jagannath, Shakshi Gopal was moved to another temple. So I was asking some devotees in Orissa, what is this love quarrel between Shakshi Gopal and Jagannath? And they said, well, the story is that Shakshi Gopal was eating all the sweets and the savories and leaving Jagannath with just the sabjis. And so he had to leave. So I was saying this is a local village story, but because Prabhupada alludes to it, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also alludes to it in his purport, therefore we accept it. But of course, what has been done in tradition, or what is done by a village, doesn't have as strong of an evidence procedure as what's in the Shastra. So Krishna is asking his father, where does it come from? And then Nanda Maharaj just says that this is tradition. This isn't Shastra, it's tradition. And he says, we're agriculturalists, we're Vaishyas, we're in the field of resources, and therefore we're dependent on the land and the cows, and we're dependent therefore on the rain. And so therefore we have to worship Indra, who gives the rain. Otherwise, we're not going to have any rain. So Krishna then does something very interesting. Krishna preaches a kind of, one could say, atheistic or materialistic philosophy, where he says that the demigods and God, they're not going to respond to worship and prayer. They're just going to give you the results of your karma. And, he's really talking about them and himself, of course, as if they're just some low-level bureaucrat. Like if you call some government office or some company and you say, I had this problem and this, sorry, that's the rule. Oh, sorry, that's the rule. Sorry, that's the rule. Right? I just have to follow the rule. So Krishna is saying that the demigods, the great demigods, are like this. There's just a rule. This is your karma. This is what you get. And you can worship them and you can talk to them, and it's not going to make any difference. Now, of course, there's some truth to that the demigods and even the Lord, if everybody who prayed to the Lord just got their karma messed with, it would be a chaotic, whimsical world. It would be a kind of nepotism that, if you just flatter the devas, then, you're going to change your karma. At the same time, things are run personally. So I often give the example of a judge. Why is there a judge in a court? Now, the judge is not there only to keep the rules of the courtroom, because you can have a very low-level person do that. But he's also there to decide on the principle, the spirit of the law, how the law can be applied in spirit. What would be the proper sentencing? Of course, sometimes the jury in America is also involved in that. But he's the one who's applying and interpreting the law. And you have to have a living person to do that, and a highly intelligent and skilled person to do that. So the demigods are also doing that. There's another reason, though, why we are meant to worship the demigods and the Lord. And this is explained nicely in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And I was hearing Prabhupada speak about this quite a bit, that love isn't just taking, love is also giving. And Prabhupada would say, you have to pay your electric bill to the sun. So this is from the consciousness that I don't just take from nature. Everything I have from nature, and I'm not just taking, but I also give back to nature, which means I give back to the devas, I give back to the Lord. Of course, if we give to Krishna, then automatically all the devas are satisfied. Just like, we pay our taxes to one office, and then it distributes it to all the various governmental departments. So why didn't Krishna just say that? Why didn't Krishna say, well, just worship God? Why didn't he say, well, you don't have to worship anyone, just do your work? And basically, because he's God. And he didn't want to ask the residents of Vrindavan to worship him because they're prema bhaktas, they're Ragatmika prema bhaktas, and therefore they're not seeing him as God. They're seeing him as just this beautiful, charming boy, the son of Nanda Maharaj. We should keep in mind that these verses where Krishna tells the residents of Vrindavan to just worship work and not worship Indra, that this is in the Bhagavatam, which Srila Jiva Goswami says is our highest scripture. They're in the 10th canto, arguably the most important canto, and they're spoken by the Lord himself. And yet we do not take these instructions that Krishna gives to his, and they're given to his topmost devotees. They're given to his prema devotees in Vrindavan. And yet we don't take these instructions as something that we should follow. So that's actually quite interesting. And when we study hermeneutics, we study that there are different categories of statement in the Shastra and by Guru, by our acharyas. One category is that of eternal, universal, trans-contextual truth, things that are true for all people at all places at all times. Another category is things that are true for all people at all times, but they're given in a particular context. Another are statements that support universal, eternal, and transcontextual truth. And then there are statements that oppose universal, eternal, and transcontextual truths. Now, most of those are statements by the demons, such as Kamsa in the wrestling arena saying, take away all of Krishna and Balaram's jewels and wealth and throw them out of the city, which is obviously a statement that's opposed to Siddhanta. But here we find the situation where the Lord himself is saying things that are opposed to Siddhanta. And in order to understand these, we have to have also Guru and Sadhu. So then Krishna had said, look, you already have a sacrifice going on here. Why don't we worship Govardhan Hill? Why don't we worship Govardhan Hill and the cows and the local brahmanas? That's really where we're getting our prosperity from. Now, this is also interesting because at the modern day, people who worship just nature deities, like forests and mountains and trees, are called pagans. And generally they're worshiping Prakriti. And often they're worshiping not even the great devas, like Indra and Chandra, Kartikeya and so forth, Ganesh, but these are semi-demigods. They're beings that have more powers than humans. Every mountain, every river, every forest has some higher entity or mystical entity that's in charge of it. But these are generally considered kind of lower level religions. So it's just, sorry that I'm in India. I'm actually at Govardhan. Of course, the power goes off here, but I'm still online, yes? Can someone tell me, am I still online?
Yes, mataji.
Excellent. All right, so it's interesting also. First interesting that Krishna was teaching some materialistic philosophy, and then interesting that he's propounding something that's going to appear to the world as some kind of pagan, low-level religion. I just recently met with David Haberman, who wrote a wonderful book called Loving Stones about Govardhan. David Haberman is a initiated Pushti Marg devotee, plus a recently retired longtime professor of religion at University in Indiana. And he writes extensively there of how there are religions in the world that make this absolute separation between God and nature, between God and the world. And when they do that, these religions cause environmental havoc. And one of the wonderful things about the various Vedic traditions, commonly called Hinduism, but the various branches, including, of course, our Gaudiya Sampradaya, is that we don't see that God is separate from nature. And Govardhan worship is perhaps one of the most extreme manifestations of this philosophy, that God takes the form of a hill, and that God himself is there in the form of a hill and in the form of all the stones on the hill. So Krishna said, let many different kinds of food be cooked, from sweet rice to vegetable soups. This is actually a picture of an offering being made to Giriraj. And then he said the Brahmanas must invoke the sacrificial fires, then feed the priests and reward them with cows and other gifts. So this was really a grand festival. Now, of course, this is our Gaudiya Vaishnava harvest festival. In most cultures, there's a harvest festival, and usually it's at this time of year, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. So this is our Gaudiya Vaishnava harvest festival. And of course, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says that he is these months. He is these months of the harvest festival. And this grand celebration, and of course, you know that among our different festivals, Govardhan Puja is one of the few where we don't fast. We don't fast and then feast. We only feast. So everyone should be fed. The Brahmanas should be fed, all the different people. The cows should be given grass. The food should be given to the dogs even. Everybody should be fed. And Krishna says, then after that, interestingly enough, says after that, present your respectful offerings to Govardhan Hill. So all of the mountains of food that were being offered to Govardhan Hill. Then Krishna said, you should dress and decorate yourselves handsomely, and then you should circumambulate the cows, you should circumambulate the Brahmanas, you should circumambulate the sacrificial fires. We often do this after initiation or wedding. And you should circumambulate Govardhan Hill. And in the Gopal Champu, it says that, if you don't want to walk, you can take a bullock cart around Govardhan Hill. And of course, this circumambulating Govardhan Hill is a very popular form of worship. Right now, I am literally right across the street from Giriraj Maharaj from Govardhan Hill. And especially since now it's Kartik, so there's at any time of the day or night, there's so many people circumambulating Govardhan Hill. And then Krishna declared, I am the Govardhan Mountain. And he ate all the offerings. So it's interesting that many times we accept something on faith. We don't have any tangible, concrete, sensory experience of it. And sometimes Krishna actually demonstrates this. Of course, like we think of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna demonstrates that he's the Virat Rupa. We have so many descriptions of the Virat Rupa in the Bhagavatam, but there in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually shows it. He's talking about in chapter 7, 9, and 10, I am the taste of water, I am the strength of the strong, I am this, I am that. And then finally Arjuna says, hey, can I see it? And Krishna shows it. So, we hear that Krishna and Govardhan Hill are the same, but at least during this festival, Krishna actually showed that he was the same. Of course, it was interesting that there was Krishna with everybody in Vrindavan worshiping himself in the form of the hill. Now, this situation reminds us of how Mother Yasoda looks in Krishna's mouth, and she sees herself and Krishna in his mouth. And she's not seeing a picture or a video, she's actually seeing herself. And Lord Brahma in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto comments on this. And he says, so if Mother Yasoda saw that I am within your belly, how am I outside of your belly talking to you? How is this happening? So of course, this is the great mystery of how the Lord exists beyond time and space. So then according to Gopal Champu, as everyone was circumambulating Govardhan Hill, they were singing a song. have a nice quote from Krishna book, chapter 24. You can see a picture of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Govardhan Shila that he gave to Raghunath Das Goswami along with the Gunjamala. Bhaktivinoda also worshipped a Govardhan Shila. And Prabhupada writes, the identity of Krishna in Govardhan Hill is still honored, and great devotees take rocks from Govardhan Hill and worship them exactly as they worship the deity of Krishna in the temples. The followers of the Krishna consciousness movement may therefore collect small rocks or pebbles from Govardhan Hill and worship them at home, because this worship is as good as deity worship. So, of course, worshipping rocks from Govardhan Hill is really only done in the Pushti Marg and the Gaudiya Sampradaya. All right, so somebody wasn't happy about the Sultan. And this is Indra.
Just see the impudence of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. They are simply inhabitants of the forest, but being infatuated with their friend Krishna, who is nothing but an ordinary human being, they have dared to defy the
So here we
demigods.
see that Indra is really out of line here. You know, he's not worshipped, his master is worshipped, and he's offended. I mean, if we're going to think of some equivalent, we could say, you know, suppose you're at some function with your Guru Maharaj, your Guru Dev, and you expected to be honored, but instead your Guru's there and your Guru's honored. And then you're all offended. Why didn't I get honored? So that was the problem. And then Indra becomes very angry. He reacts way out of proportion to the situation at hand.
Go and I shall follow you, riding on my elephant. Great storms will come with me to give the proper punishment. Good and rage you great storm clouds, they should be destroyed along with their
So Indra decides that he's been offended, and he gets very angry, and then he goes on the offense. This is very typical of what we do, you know, when we're insulted, then we're just nasty back, right? Or if we think that we're insulted. So clouds blazed with lightning bolts and roared with thunder, and they were hurling down hailstones. The clouds released torrents of rain as thick as massive columns, and the earth was submerged in the flood. The cows and the other animals were shivering. The cowherd men and women all approached Govinda for shelter. So this response of Indra is very, very typical of conditioned souls. You know, if you say to somebody, hey, you did something wrong, they'll say, well, you also do something wrong. They'll try to do something to you. And Indra wasn't even told he did anything wrong. I mean, Krishna just said, hey, I want this done to Govardhan. And Krishna showed that he was Govardhan. And Indra, being a devotee, should have been happy that respect was being shown to his master in this wonderful way. And instead he took it, I'm being insulted. I'm not being cared for. I'm not being treated the way I deserve. And he released the fury of the destruction of the universe. So he wanted to kill all the devotees and destroy Vrindavan. And this story is really amazing in many respects, because this offense of Indra is a huge offense, to try to kill the devotees, to kill Krishna's cows, to destroy Vrindavan. I mean, I think it's hard to think of you know, very many offenses that are greater than that. So they were shivering, they approached Govinda for shelter. And this is, of course, also interesting from a Rasika position, because the devotees in Vrindavan, they see that Krishna is just a little boy. In fact, because they see that Krishna is a little boy, therefore Krishna didn't say, don't worship Indra, worship God, and I'm God. I'll worship Govardhan. Because it would disrupt them to see that Krishna is God. Yet when there's difficulty, they take shelter and they say, Govinda, save us. Now, this is just fascinating. If you can think in your community, if there was some kind of huge disturbance, would you go up to some little 7-year-old, 8-year-old boy and say, save us, save us? I mean, it's laughable. But even though the devotees are in this yogamaya and they're in this mood, still they have this sense of taking shelter of Krishna. So Bhagavatam says that Krishna says by his mystic power, I will counteract this disturbance caused by Indra. When I break the false prestige of those bereft of goodness, my purpose is to bring them relief. So we're very attached to our ahankara, to our false ego, but actually our false ego is simply making us suffer in so many ways. And so a lot of what Krishna does in our life that we perceive as catastrophic and painful is really Krishna trying to get rid of something that's causing us pain. Just like a doctor, if you have some unnatural tumor growth and it's pressing on things and it's causing pain. So the doctor will remove it. And of course, the process of removing it is also temporarily painful. They may have to make some incision and take the tumor out and so forth. But then afterwards, you're like, what a relief that this thing is gone. Yeah. So Krishna's like that. He's removing the tumor. He's removing the infection. But that process of removing it feels very painful to us because we associate ourselves with the false ego. So Krishna says, I must protect the cowherd community. I'm their shelter, their master, and they're my own family. Now you could say, well, everybody is the family of God. Aham bija pradapita. Krishna is the father of everyone, the grandfather of everyone, the mother of everyone. But still, these are people related to him in this loving mood of being his family. So Krishna says, I've got to do something. Now, what he decides to do is really amazing. It's really out of the box thinking. If there's a flood, you generally go to higher land, but I suppose you could have an umbrella, but the flood would come up. So Krishna does this amazing, completely unprecedented, and again, out of the box. Who would think of dealing with torrential rains and a flood like this? So Krishna deals with this situation by lifting up Govardhan Hill and asking everyone to come under the hill. And that's what everybody does. They come under the hill like a big umbrella. There were so many residents. Nanda Maharaj had 900,000 cows. Of course, Govardhan Hill, it is a big hill, but still for everyone to come under the hill. And that anybody, and people were certainly astonished that Krishna was doing this. At the same time, of course, later on, they were asking, is Krishna God? We have this happening in the Bhagavatam. But mostly they were just thinking, wow, Krishna is so wonderful that he's doing this. And in Nanda Vrindavan Champu, it says that ordinary, a large cowherd community, which included many thousands of cows, bulls, and so on, could not fit under the base of a medium-sized hill like Sri Govardhan. However, because the hill was in ecstasy, being touched by the hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it acquired inconceivable power and even felt the hundreds of deadly thunderbolts thrown upon its back by angry Indra to be offerings of soft, fragrant flowers. At times, Sri Govardhan was not even aware that the thunderbolts were striking. I think we all have this experience whenever we're really absorbed in something that we love, that we all of a sudden our back hurting us or our head hurting us or something, we just don't even notice it anymore. And we forget about all of our troubles. So what to speak of when we're really fully absorbed in the service of the Lord, the troubles of the world are not even noticed by us. And it says that because what about everybody else? Krishna held this hill for 7 days. And people they didn't have to eat, they didn't have to sleep, they didn't have to drink water. They were drinking the beauty and sweetness of Krishna. So they didn't feel hunger, thirst, or fatigue. So Govardhan Hill didn't feel any difficulty. The people under it didn't feel any difficulty. And Krishna, holding up the hill with the little finger of his left hand, he didn't feel any difficulty either. The only person that felt difficulty here was Indra. So Indra, he just couldn't understand, why isn't my plan working? Why aren't I able to kill everyone and devastate everyone? So after 7 days, he gives up. Now, this shows the difference between, say, Indra and Ravana. So with Ravana, he's fighting Krishna, fighting Ramachandra, and we just had Ram Vijay. And with Ravana, one son after another, one brother after another, Ram and Lakshman are killing them. And rather than saying, maybe I should surrender, even though so many friends and relatives are telling him to surrender, Ravana just keeps fighting until the end, till he's killed. Whereas Indra, being a devotee, even though he was overcome by false ego and pride, he does, wait a minute, I think I've made a mistake. So he says, stop, don't do this anymore. So we may offend the devotees, we may make so many mistakes. That's natural, if that's expected. But hopefully we don't make this big of a mistake that we try to kill everybody in Vrindavan. But we should come to a point that we realize our mistake, that we stop, and that we decide that we're going to rectify. Krishna says, Apichet Sutracharo, my devotees, even if they commit some abominable actions. But why? Because they stop, they rectify. That's the difference between the demons and the devotees. The demons may do something horrible, but they don't recognize it. Their false ego will never allow them to say that they've done anything wrong. Whereas the devotees, they rectify, they repent. And there's so many examples like this in the Shastra, and of course this is one of them. Then Krishna says, he sees Indra stop, says, my dear cowherd men, please go out with your wives, children, and possessions. And then while everybody looked, Krishna put down the hill in its original place, exactly as it had been before. And then everyone in Vrindavan, they came forward to meet Krishna. So the demigods sang his praises and showered flowers. And now there was not only the festival of Govardhan Puja in Vrindavan, which had happened, of course, a week earlier, but now there was a festival all over the universe. So Indra took advice from Lord Brahma and he brought Surabhi with him. Lord Brahma said that Krishna will be kinder to you if you come with his devotees, Surabhi. And it's also interesting that Indra came to see Krishna in a private place. So in one sense, Krishna had already shamed Indra publicly by lifting Govardhan Hill because Indra's offense was very public. But apologies are difficult. Apologies are not easy. And Krishna allowed Indra to make his apology privately. So this is astonishing, the kindness of Krishna, that even though Indra had acted so wrongly out of his false ego, Krishna was still allowing him, right? Like when Mahaprabhu defeated Keshwar Kashmiri, it was semi-private. I mean, he had some of his students there, but it wasn't in some big public arena. Krishna's chastisement of Lord Brahma for stealing the boys and calves was certainly very private. So that's not always the case. But generally, when it's Krishna's devotees who mess up, Krishna allows them, at least he allows them the opportunity to repent privately. So Indra was very ashamed. So this is, again, the hallmark of a devotee, that when a devotee commits some offense or messes up, they feel some shame. They feel some deep repentance. Now, not that they're wallowing in shame and tamagun and hating themselves, Shame is felt actually because one loves oneself and one sees, I am a pure soul. Jivaraswarpa, Krishna Nichidas, I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. And yet I was acting in this horrible way. So Indra fell down and he laid his helmet, which was as effulgent as the sun, on the Lord's lotus feet. And Indra recognized, now this is also very significant, and we could study this in depth, about how Indra apologizes. He doesn't just say, I messed up. You know, as I say, giving an authentic apology is very difficult. And the reason it's very difficult is that we want to believe that we're well motivated. And so therefore we'll say, well, I did the wrong thing, but actually I'm really a good person. I think that's because we have a sense that as a soul, we're good people. But Indra here was admitting his internal fault. He said, engrossed in pride over my ruling power, ignorant of your majesty, I offended you. So he's admitting it was his own pride. He says, oh Lord, may you forgive me, my intelligence was bewildered, but let my consciousness never again be so impure. Of course, it's interesting. That doesn't mean that he has no free will, because he gets offended with Krishna over the parijata tree. So Krishna says, I wanted you to always remember me. If someone's intoxicated with power and opulence, they can't see that I'm nearby. They don't understand that their power and opulence is coming from me. We think about, the discussion between Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad. How Hiranyakashipu said to Prahlad, where do you get your superhuman power? And Prahlad says, well, same place you do. You get your power from God, and so do I. But when people are very arrogant, they don't understand that everything's coming from Krishna. And so Krishna says, execute my order and remain in your appointed position, but be sober without false pride. So this statement of the Lord is really indicative of the Lord's kindness. I think the vast majority of us humans, if we saw someone abuse his power and authority the way Indra did here, to this extent, we would strip him of his title and his position. And Krishna says, keep your title and your position, but behave yourself. So then Surabhi bathes Krishna with her milk, and Airavata bathes Indra with Ganga water. And so at this point, Krishna got the name Govinda. He became the Indra of the cows. And all creatures, even those naturally cruel, became free from envy.
All the people of Vrindavan, for your good fortune and the fortune of your cows as well, worship Govardhan Hill. All the people of Vrindavan, for your good fortune and the fortune of your cows as well.
Giri Nripaharidasa Sreni Varjati Namah Mitamidam Siradika Vaktra Chandra Brajanavati Lakate Kliripta Vidaiks Putang Me Vijanikatani Vasang Dehi Govardhan
O Govardhan, O king of mountains, O hill whose nectar name, the best of Lord Hari's servants, flows from the moon of Sri Radha's mouth, O hill that the Vedas declare to be the tilak marking of Vraja, please grant to me residence near you. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And we have a very little bit of time if there's questions.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Wonderful narration. Looks like Vinod Kovidas. Go ahead.
That was supposed to be a applause or hands. I don't know if I have a question right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else has questions, reflections, comments? Unmute yourself or raise your hand.
I should say that I'm now traveling and giving live classes. And so I basically refused everybody who's asked me to do a Zoom class. But Krishna Namananda Prabhu was just so persistent. He just asked me and asked me again 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 and asked me again. So finally I thought, well, if someone's that persistent, then I'm going to accept. And so I got to speak about Giriraj right at the feet of Giriraj. I'm literally a 3-minute walk from the lotus feet of Giriraj Maharaj. So as we're starting Kartik today, so at least here it's starting today. So I hope you have a wonderful Kartik, and I hope that you all have the blessings of Giriraj Maharaj and Srimati Radharani.
Thank you.
And Krishna and all of our parampara. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. I think
Mataji,
Anjana
Hare
Mata, you have
Krishna.
questions?
Hare,
Looks like
Hare
there's
Krishna. Yes.
Right.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes.
Yes.
Hare
Very
Krishna.
nice class. Yes. Hare Krishna. Yes. When you mentioned Krishna Prabhuji was insisting for the online class, I'm very glad he did that. And because this is the only way we can connect with you, like if we cannot meet you in person, even if you are planning to travel to give the lessons, not sure if we can get that opportunity to meet or to listen to that way in person, but please continue with the Zoom classes. And I'm very thankful to Krishna Prabhuji and you. I'm looking forward to more of your online classes.
Thank you. Well, usually when I'm doing in-person teaching, I'm just too busy. I'm too busy, giving in-person classes to also give online classes. So
And
it's
that you're
actually
doing
quite...
in India only? In-person classes only in India?
No, I've been traveling since the end of May. So I was teaching I was teaching also in Chicago and all over Europe and Middle East and now India. We'll be in India for another month and a half. And then we'll be in
New Jersey?
will we be in New Jersey? No, we'll be in Malaysia and Indonesia and New Zealand and Australia. So I don't have any current plans for New Jersey, but we'll see. We'll see what Giriraj has in mind.
But thank you, Mataji. This was like kind of a new chapter. Like we grew up like by listening or hearing these Krishna Leela stories. And this was one of the chapter you explained really well. And for me, it was like our hearing after a long time about that Krishna Leela connected to like this, that Parvat and the story like the Bal Leela kind of, right?
Yes. All right. Well, again, thank you very much. And
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances and Dhanapram. Can I ask question, Mataji, or I think?
sure.
Good. There is some quick.
Okay. Mataji, is Govardhan Hill is there since the Dwapar Yuga, or I heard like Lord Hanuman also related to the Govardhan Hill. So in which yuga it came actually?
Oh, well, there's various stories in different shastras, but actually Govardhan Hill exists eternally in the spiritual world and is manifest here when Krishna, in advance of Krishna's Leelas, so that when Krishna comes to do his Leelas, it's already here. And of course, gradually it will disappear. So as time moves on, Govardhan Hill is going into the earth.
And Mataji, I heard like that the Govardhan Hill, the finally like becomes slowly smaller and smaller. They're completely going the disappear.
Correct,
This is the
correct.
end of the beginning of the huge crisis, or this is the that. So how to understand that when this Govardhan Hill going to disappear, then the Kali Yuga on the ramped up the huge, or how the or the creation
Well,
ending.
Kali Yuga's got another 427,000 years for them. So we have quite a lot more Kali Yuga to go. But we know there's 10,000 years of Mahaprabhu's glorious movement. So certainly when the Dham no longer manifests, things are much more difficult for people. Attaining prema is a lot harder when the Dham is not manifest. Yamuna is already drying up in Braj. You know, the Dham is always here, but it becomes manifest and unmanifest according to people's mentality, people's piety. Okay, I do need to go. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful for your
Thank
time.
you, Mataji.
Very good. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All the best to you, all this Prabhupada.
Hare
Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Giriraj Maharaj ki jai.
Yeah. All this Urmila mataji. Yeah. Thank you. We'll have quick announcements. Please join for Sunday feast program today evening. Well, as per the Damodar month starting from yesterday. So we'll have Damodar Ashtakam at 8:35. Important days coming up. Please note down. First one is November 5th, Radha Kund Appearance Day. That is next Sunday. Very, very important. It's also called Bahulastami. Day before is Saturday is Narottam Das Thakur's Disappearance Day, November 4th. November 12th is Diwali. Govardhan Puja also most likely we will be celebrating because Monday is Govardhan Puja, November 13th, Monday. So November 12th is a big day. Diwali with Annakut, I guess. We'll post the details. You can all bring the items, 500 plus items we offer on that day for Annakut. So November 12th, Sunday mostly. Then November 16th is still Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. It's also very, very important for all of us. November 16th, Thursday, please note that. Then November 20th, Monday is Gopastami. Most likely, I guess we'll celebrate on Sunday. Gopastami, Gopa Vesh, special attire, special dress, special decoration. Don't miss it. We'll have class also. November 19th, I think we'll celebrate because it's a big day. November 20th, Monday is Gopastami. Then next is November 23rd. The last 5 days is very, very prominent. 30 days we should do every day. If you cannot, at least do last 5 days, which is Bhishma Panchak. Bhishma Dev himself has done it, and others from various Puranas. So November 23rd starts with Ekadasi, that is Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Disappearance Day, very, very important day. November 23rd, Thursday. From then it starts Bhishma Panchak, 5 days till November 26th, last day of Kartik. The last 5 days are also very, very important to increase our devotion service. November 26th is the last day, that is Rasa Purnima. Last day is also very important. Lord Krishna performed many pastimes of Sharad Purnima on the first day, and last one is Rasa Purnima. So that is the last day. So please continue your fasting from Urad Dal, minimum at least. You can do other fastings, but at least Urad Dal we should avoid, as it is mentioned. So those are the upcoming events. See you all in the evening. Be in the association of devotees and participate in Damodar Ashtakam as per 8:35 every day. Morning also, but evening is the most important, especially on Sundays, where all the devotees are there. So it's nice to celebrate together for the pleasure of Sri Prabhupada. Okay. Thank you all for your time and association. We will conclude. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.